Hello, and welcome to the second lesson in the third Fetter. This lesson is a fun one. It's one that is, when you have heard other people say that when they're doing the Fetter work, when you're going through all the Fetters, that there might still be work to do. This is what they mean. What we're talking about today is really, really difficult to look at because it's so much about identification. There are so many things that we do in our everyday life with routines and with perceptions that we have, with ideas about ourselves, about diet and exercise and our finances and all of that. There's so much about that we identify with, and we're not even aware that we identify. But I think it's really important to work with and look at, no matter if you have done all the fetters and now you're back to tease out all of that identification, or if you are straight out from the awakening curriculum and this is the sequence that you're doing things in. No matter what, it's completely fine. There's not a right way to work with awakening. There's not a right way to do it, and there's not a right tool that fits for everyone. So use this lesson for when you want to look into all the small things that you identify with, that you're not aware of identifying with. Now, it also comes with a warning, because it's so easy to jump into the self-help boat. And the ego really, really wants you to do that. The ego really wants you to think that there's something wrong with you. But you can be right, and if you just do this, then you will be right. Then everything's going to be fine. Then you're going to be so much better, much better version of yourself. So if you just eat the right things and do the right exercise and meditate the right way and all of that, if you just change that, then you're fine. The ego really, really wants you to believe that. So we're going through the 10 care areas for, self-care for the non-self. And there are 10. I have just chosen 10 areas. I'm sure there are others, and I'm sure there's more. And if you have areas which I'm not mentioning that you find really interesting to look at, then please write it in the comment section. I would love to, make a video about that. But I've chosen the 10 areas that in my experience are where we identify a lot. It's where we identify a lot, and where we have a lot tied up to doing things in the right way. And that's what we're going to go through. So when we talk about diet and exercise and finances and intellectual awareness and creative awareness and all of that, when we talk about it, really, really be aware of where your identification lies. Be curious. And it's also one of those things that this lesson is really, really difficult to work with on your own. It's really useful to have a group, because you need somebody to call you out. You might, think that, but there's nothing to look at regarding my diet. I'm eating healthy, I'm vegan, I'm taking all my supplementation, I'm drinking all the water that I need, I'm so good. Then you need somebody to call you out on the identification that you just did with that. So there's nothing wrong with any of the things that you do or don't do. I'm not here to tell you that you should do anything different. That's the whole point. So it's very much about becoming aware of the identification that you have with doing it or not doing it. So really become aware of those areas. And look into where your identification lies. And remember, there's nothing wrong with either you doing or not doing. And it's also very much the trap in this is to fall into the self-help trap. The ego would love for you to jump into that. Even though you're aware of this is not being self-help, this is not anything where I need to improve in any way. Even though you're very, very clear about that, you still need to be very much aware of that Buddhist middle way. Because we tend to have control on one side and nihilism on the other side. And staying in that middle way where you just have a pure awareness about what is going on, about what you think is right or not right. That's super helpful. And you will probably multiple times when you go through this lesson feel that you either jump into the, go tip over and go into the control. If I just control myself out of it, then I can do it. Or you go into the nihilist way where it doesn't really matter, there's no me. So why does it really matter to go to the dentist? Why is that even, a thing? It doesn't really matter when there's no I. And both of those are identification. They're bypassing the point that we're trying to make when we talk about awareness and awakening. And the point is that this moment doesn't need anything. There's nothing that you need to do. There's nothing about this moment that's wrong. There's nothing that needs to be better or less than what it is. So if you have cancer, it's completely fine. If you're poor, it's completely fine. If you're seeing everything through that cerebral, scientific understanding, it's fine. It's fine. There's nothing that needs to be different. This moment doesn't need anything. It's just about you becoming aware of the identification that you put into those, either having cancer, being poor, or being very, very cerebral. So it's just about becoming aware of the identification, and that's what we're going to do. So keep that in mind, that middle way. Keep that in mind when we go through the 10 different care areas. I can also recommend you to have a notebook. I talked about that before. Have a notebook where you write down the takeaways that you have from the lessons, and really, really look into the identification that you have with the 10 care areas, and either speak with your guide or speak in Vince's group about it. So you are challenged and you are called out on the part, because it takes a lot of introspection and takes a lot of curiosity to really, really stay on the middle way and see the identification clearly. And we need help with that. All of us need help with that. So the first care area is about nourishing food, fast, and fresh water. And when we talk about nourishing food, fast, and fresh water, I would like for you to put yourself in that mindset where you cannot make anything happen. You can only let it happen. And that's very, very important. We have so many issues when it comes to diet. A lot of us have had a childhood where we have been rewarded with food, or we have been comforted with food, and that kind of like sticks with us. So when we are sick, we want something special to eat that we are used to eating. When we are sad, we want something special to eat that we are used to eating, that we've been taught to eat. And really becoming aware that nourishing food is anything that is supporting your cells in life. So vibrant food for vibrant people. If you eat anything that won't go in the compost, then logic only dictates that your body is not going to thrive on that. If you can't toss what you're eating into the compost, then you probably shouldn't eat it. There's nothing in it that is keeping your cells alive or keep you happy. And when I said that, then I want you to keep in mind that there's not a right way or wrong way. If you live off McDonald's and milkshakes, then I would never be the one to tell you that that's wrong or that you should stop doing that. Instead, I would recommend you to just be curious to the identification that happens in that. I am a person that does not like vegetables. I am a person that does not believe in diets. I am a person that, just look into it. Look into what it's giving you, because we only do things that is benefiting us. So if you live off burgers and milkshakes, then there's something in that really, really benefits you. And look into that. Be curious about that. Another thing that I also tend to repeat a lot is the part that about obesity not being a problem, but obesity being a solution. And I would like for you to look into that. What is your obesity, or what is your diet habits a solution to? What are you either avoiding or achieving with the diet that you have? So it's just about becoming aware of what is actually going on. When you are out shopping, what are you led by? Are you led by nourishment or comfort, or are you led by good deals and not quality? What is your identification about? Is it about being organic and vegan and fair trade and all of that? Is there any identification in that? Or is there an identification in should never ever be, fanatic? Is there any identification in the breakfast is the most important meal of the day, so you make sure that you eat a lot for breakfast? Or are you into fasting? Do you have any identification with, you can't water fast for 2 weeks? That's not possible. I could never ever do that. Just look into it. Are you sure? Are you sure? Or is it about avoiding something? Is there a contraction when we talk about this that makes you feel very, very uncomfortable? And instead of looking into that feeling of being uncomfortable, you divert your attention and your awareness into a role where one needs protein, and that's why I kill animals, or whatever it is about. Again, I'm not saying that there's anything right or anything wrong. It's only about you looking into it. So question everything. Question what you eat for breakfast. Question why you eat as you do. Question everything. Really, really be curious. And look into the habits about it. And I also want to say that it also comes with a warning. If you're a person that fast 18 hours a day and you drink lots of fresh water and you're vegan and eat whole food and really, taking good care of the planet and taking good care of your body, and your body is your temple, and be aware if that then is your identification. If you identify as a person who eats like that, who is vegan. And obviously I'm not saying that there's anything bad about being vegan. I mean, in my opinion, it doesn't make any sense to work with awakening and not be vegan. I mean, it makes no sense to work on being awake and then you go into the forest and kill another living being. Makes no sense. But that's, again, is my opinion. But be aware where the identification lies. Are you a person that need your protein and that's why you kill animals? Or are you a person that doesn't because that's wrong? Just look into the identification. Be open to anything that you believe is right. Really, really question that. Really question what is right. Yeah. And the next one is about sleep and mental stillness. And again, it's not something that you can make happen. You can only let it happen. And when we talk about sleep and mental stillness, it's two things that are very, very close connected. First of all, sleep. A lot of people, they don't sleep enough. Either they don't sleep enough or they sleep too much. And we tend to have this idea about our sleep that is tied in with what time it is. I can't go to bed now, it's way too early. Then I'm going to wake up at 3 o'clock and then what? Really look into the identification that you have with sleep. Look into when you're getting to bed and look into when you're getting up. Is that based on what the body needs? Or is it based on what time it is? And if you say, well, I have to get up to work, I can't just sleep in, then maybe look into when you go to bed. Because if you're still tired and dragging yourself out of bed in the morning, then you probably got to bed too late. So what was that about? That priority that we have with it's so important to watch TV in the evening, or it's so important to catch up on Facebook or Insta or wherever. It's so important to do that we are prioritizing that over sleep. And it's the same with the mental stillness, you know. For a lot of people, it's enough just to sit in quiet. You know, put your phone in flight mode and just sit. Have a full awareness about how it is to be in your body right now. How does it feel to be in your body right now? And if you close your eyes, can you do the practice where you really look into where is the I? So you close your eyes and you breathe, and then you can start to have a focus on where your bum is sitting, and feel how it's dissolving. Feel how that after a while it doesn't even feel like you have a bum anymore. And look into where the outer periphery of you is with your eyes closed, and feel how that slowly is dissolving as well. So where exactly is the I? And just sit with that sensory experience of what it is to be in this meat suit right now. And with closed eyes, you will feel that the meat suit just dissolves. And you can practice that where you do it in the morning, just before you get up. And you do it in the evening, just before you fall asleep. Just to have a routine where you practice that stillness, where you have mental stillness, and where you're just aware of where you actually are, what is actually in your sensory experience right now. Not what you think is in the sensory experience, but what actually is part of your soundscape or your feelingscape. What exactly do you feel right now? When you sit with open eyes, what do you actually see? So really have an awareness about that and have the mind going still. Also notice that when you, for example, are sitting with eyes open and you sit and look at things, what is the eye catching out? Because the eyes move very, very quickly between things. Even when you're trying just to look at one thing, very quickly you will see that your eyes slowly has moved. And every time it looks at something new, the mind attaches a label to what it is you're seeing. And that is part of that distance that we have from reality, where we tend to believe what the mind thinks about things. So if I look out the window and say that is a tree, then I have distanced myself from what I'm actually seeing to what my mind is telling me that I'm seeing. Spend time every day where you really look into that. Really look into your perception and that delusion that we have through our perception. And get back to that mental stillness where you're just present and aware with what is right now. So also spend some time where you look into how much the ego is labeling everything and how much the ego is finding faults with everything all the time. Every time you sit and just, for example, sit and breathe, either with your eyes open or your eyes closed, very, very quickly, your ego will draw you away from the moment and start to tell you that something needs to be different than what it is right now. Oh, I also need to remember that, and I also need to do that, and oh, if only I wasn't cold right now, or if only it wasn't so warm, and the ego does that all the time. So becoming aware of that happening is really important and very, very useful to become aware of that identification that happens all the time without you even being aware. And the last thing I want to say about this is it comes with a warning. Be aware if you are identifying as a person that meditates, I am a person that meditates, I am a person that does breath work, I am a person that goes on retreats. That's part of an identification. That means that the whole purpose of you looking into the identification has now taken a turn into you identifying with a person who looks into identification. Careful with that. And then it's about exercise. And my goodness, that's like pouring petrol on the fire. Again, with exercise, you cannot make anything happen. You can only let it happen. So if you sit here right now and then feel what is your body moved towards right now, that is exercise. If you should exercise right now, what would your body move you to do? Is it standing and doing free dance? Is it yoga? Is it stretching? Is it going for a walk? Is it jumping in the kids' trampoline in the backyard? If you were not to do anything with a purpose, and you were just to do it because the body is moved to do it, what would your exercise actually look like? So if you're not making anything happen, but you're just letting it happen, then how does your daily exercise actually look? Because you will find out that a lot of times, for example, if there are stairs and you are choosing between the elevator or the stairs, a lot of times we're doing either because of an identification. Oh no, I'm way too lazy to take the stairs. Are you sure? Are you sure? If you're standing here right now, what is your body moved to do? Have you been sitting down too much today? Would it really be nice actually to take the stairs? There's nobody who says that you need to take the stairs quickly. You can take however long time you want to. So really that looking into what is your body moving you towards when it comes to exercise. And don't make it happen. Just let it happen. And the body needs exercise. The meat suit needs exercise. Not to lose weight, but because exercise is a great way to de-stress. It's a great way to feel that endorphin happiness. And light and air and movement, it makes exercise as effective as antidepressants. And at the same time, it also detoxes the body from all the stress hormones. So exercise is important for the body. For us to have strong bones, you need to use your muscles. All the muscles are let's say all the muscles are attached to the bones via ligaments and fascia and so on. But so you need to move your muscles. You need to use your body. But don't decide on anything with your head. You can decide to only do exercise that's fun. And there's no limit to what exercise you can do. You can dance salsa, you can trampoline jump, you can do yoga, judo, you can do roller skating, pole dancing, whatever you want to. Look back at when you were a child. What did you enjoy doing as a child? Was it skipping roads? Was it running? Was it climbing trees? So if you from now on decide that the exercise that you're doing is whatever the body is moving you to do, and then you do that without a question, without any opinion about it, and you just move to do that, then you will see that the whole identification that you have with exercise, either doing it or not doing it, is going to be questioned. And movement is wonderful. It feels good. If you stay in that sensory experience of movement, then you have another insight to what it is to be in the body when you only focus on the sensory experience, which means that you can't run with your head, you can't run with a time, you can't bicycle or swim lanes or any of that where it's in the head, where you're doing it for a purpose. You're just doing it because it feels wonderful to do it. And you stop doing it when you feel like stopping doing it, and there's nothing more to it. So when we talk about exercise, choose fun. Do something that's fun. The body loves fun. You love to laugh. You love to have new experiences where the body is moving in different ways, because that piques your curiosity. And that's part of that experiencing the moment where you feel that nothing is missing and nothing needs to be any different. You're just going for a walk. Oh, I want to smell this fur. Oh, I want to smell this flower. There are birds over there. Let's go over there. So you just move with that ease in your body, and you just move with the body wanting to move in a certain direction. And that's it. So this one obviously also comes with a warning. If you start to identify as a person that does yoga, or as a person that gets your step in every single day, or improve your time, then look into that. Look into that. What person would you be if it wasn't about that? If you never ever can tell anyone that you are doing pole dancing or yoga, but you just do it because the body's moving you to it. If it's not about you getting your steps in, and it's not about you not getting your steps in. I really hope that you hear what I'm talking about with that middle way, with control on one side and nihilism on the other side, where you're just in that middle way where you allow the body to be moved towards where you want to go. And even when you do that, be careful with the identification of that. Then I would like to talk about closeness and sex and love. And again, the same thing is here, that you cannot make anything happen. You can just let it happen. And having a very fixed idea about what friendship is, or a very fixed idea of what closeness or intimacy or sex is, having a very fixed idea of that is putting you into a box where your identification lies. So let's first talk about the love and the closeness. Love is safety, and love is always the answer. I usually ask people, have you kissed yourself today? And by that I mean, have you literally had that feeling of love towards the meat suit, towards the being that you are in? Can you turn every situation that you are in into seeing the benefit of it, and into seeing that this is actually, out of everything that is happening, this is the best that can happen? Because obviously it is. It's what's happening. And in that, there's no comparison with anything else. It's just what is happening. And that is a very, very deep-seated love to the moment. A very deep-seated love to whatever is happening. And where there's no wish for anything else, because this is the best that can happen, because it is happening. And having love towards yourself, and I know that I'm saying yourself, please bear with me. Having love towards yourself on that level is very, very healing. Especially if you had issues in the second Fetter, where we talked about the bully, the passive-aggressive bully, and the chameleon. If you have issue about fear, anger, guilt, and shame, really looking into love, and you being compassionate, kind, and full of love towards you all the time. Having that unconditional acceptance to whatever you're experiencing is fine. It's fine. That is really, really healing. And if you have people in your life where you get affection and attention and love and compassion from, that's just cherry on the top. You're just fortunate. That's just amazing. But you can't count on them giving you compassion and love and understanding and space. You need to do that. You need to be the one that is making sure that you are met, and that you are loved, and that you feel compassion and kindness towards yourself. It needs to start with you. It needs to start with you. You can't expect other people to do that. If they do, great, amazing. but that's a cherry on top. It's not what has to happen. So closeness and attention and to be listened to and held space for, that's really healing. But you need to start with that. You need to do that. Really, in every single situation that you are in, see you as somebody you care for and care about. Make sure that you are loving what is and who you are. Understand me right when I say who you are, and loving that and not wishing for anything to be any different. And that closeness and that intimacy that you can have with yourself, that's the foundation of this care area. So ask yourself, do you feel love right now? Towards you, to put your hands on your body, on your thighs, on your arms, hold your own hands. Do you feel love right now? Do you feel that you're loved right now? Do you love you right now? Do you love the body as it is? And the mind as it is? Do you love things being as they are right now? And then I would like to talk about sex. So, awakened sexuality, it's a completely different ballgame. You know that you've heard a million times that people, they say that sex is not happening in the body, it's happening in the mind. And no. Ego is happening in the mind. With awakened sexuality, it's very much about sensory experiences. So it's where two bodies on two sensory experiences are combined in a way that is beyond what you experience with one body. So it's very much a merging and a melting of two bodies or two meat suits, where there is that sensory awareness of what is happening, and it's like the entire universe is involved in that expansion and dissolving that is happening, and it has nothing to do with the mind. Nothing to do with the mind at all. The mind is not present at all. It's only a sensory experience that is happening. That's awakened sexuality. So if we just talk a bit about the meat suit, an orgasm is releasing endorphins and oxytocin and serotonin, and it's raising the baseline of dopamine. It's releasing all stress that you have in the body. It's kind of like rebooting the entire body. So if you're stressed or concerned or feel a distance to where you are, get an orgasm. Either yourself or ask a friend to help you out. But it's that using just like we talked about with exercise and with food, that it's that full awareness on what is happening in the body. I also want to say that we have reached this weird part when we talk about sex, that sex is still a taboo to talk about. Not if you want a lot of sex and you have a lot of sex, that's not taboo. It's taboo, for example, to say that you don't like sex, or you don't want sex, or you are asexual, or you have any preferences outside of the norm. That's taboo. And if you have any kind of identification with I am and I only, and then you're forceful towards yourself, having any kind of identification in being in a relationship, or having a lots of orgasms or not having a lots of orgasms, and having any kind of identification with that, really be curious to what is it that you're dictating that is not where the body is moving. If you are in that Buddhist middle way, where where it's just the present awareness and the present being, and you have control on one side and nihilism on the other side. Find out where you are with your sexuality. Find out what feels nice. And not to be like orgasm chasing or anything, but just finding out what feels nice in your body. What sensory touch is lovely. How is it nice to be with the meat suit? And be curious about that. And question everything that you thought was your reality, and be okay with whatever comes up. And if you're not, find out why you're judging yourself for what is. It is as it is. Why are you judging yourself for that? Why do you want things to be different from what is? Yeah. It also obviously comes with a warning, because look into if you identify as a person that is in a relationship or not in a relationship, as a person that is heterosexual or not heterosexual, as a person who is has an active sex life or has been celibate for decades. Just look into what you identify, that identification with a person that is in a certain way. Look into that. And again, there's nothing right or wrong at all. It's just looking into the identification of what is. Yeah. Then there are 4 areas that needs awareness. And the first one is intellectual awareness. Again, you cannot make anything happen. You can only let it happen. So when you start to work with your intellectual awareness, it's very much about looking into that part of you that do not know. Partly to become aware of what you know and what you don't know, but also to look into the identification that you have with that, with the knowing or with the not knowing. We can stimulate our intellect our entire lives. There are so many different ways that you can stimulate your intellect. And when you do that, you question your beliefs. So if you decide to learn a language every year, you want to learn a new language every year, or you decide to learn everything there's to know about a country every month, no matter what you decide to do, that is stimulating your intellect, that is will always also challenge your identification, either in the way that you didn't know all of these things and now you all of a sudden do, or in the way that I'm one of these people that speak multiple languages. So no matter if you do it or don't do it, there's identification in it, and it's worth looking at. There are many, many different ways you can stimulate your intellect. The most important thing is that you're curious and you keep challenging that idea that you have of knowing. When we come to the 10th fetter, we're working with not knowing and become aware that you absolutely do not know anything. And I would like for you to start looking at it now, to be humble. That no matter how, if you spend the rest of your life developing and enhancing and improving your intellect, you will still not know everything. So this one is the one about the care area. It's about looking into the identification you have with your IQ. Either if you are educated and you have a high IQ, look into that identification, or if you think you're dumb. If you think that you don't know anything and you're so dumb and you've always been told that you're dumb, look into that identification and question it. You can find everything online. Everything is available online. If you want to be, just learn small tidbits, I can recommend you Vsauce. Vsauce is amazing at that. You can get Duolingo, start to learn languages. You can look into philosophy or art or math or history or read biographies. There's so many different ways for you to expand that view you have of you knowing. Another thing I can recommend you to do when we talk about about the intellectual awareness is to speak with people that has a different attitude than you. Seek flat earthers and have them talk about it, and don't sit and listen to them with that idea of it, like, you know, giggle when they're talking, you know. Really listen to what they say and see how much you do not know about what they perceive as reality. The same with political parties, people that support Bernie Sanders or Trump or whatever, as long as it's something that is not what you identify with, but the opposite or just different. And look into how much identification you have with that. How much identification you have with things being in a certain way and you believing that things are in a certain way. And funnily enough, you know how things are supposed to be or how things really, really are. If you're the type of person that is looking for scientific studies, scientific proof of everything, then this is really important for you to look at, and the identification with that. You don't need to be very old to have experienced that something has been scientifically proven and disproven in your lifetime. If you are that young, so that hasn't happened, then just look into history. So much has been proven and disproven. And disproven and then proved to be true anyway. So really, really work with the intellectual awareness. Question everything. Question everything. Be curious about everything. There's so many things that you don't know. And obviously it comes with a warning. Look into the identification that you have of your intellect. And also, if you are identifying as the person who is well educated, who is very cerebral and has an answer to everything, look into that. Look into that identification. Any kind of know-it-all is identification. Be curious to that. And then I would like to talk about EQ, emotional awareness. And this one is really one that I find is very, very important for a lot of men to look into. There's so much focus on toxic masculinity at the moment. And I really think that it would be great if you can turn it into positive masculinity. Seek up different people, both on n-xsta and YouTube, that are working with positive masculinity. Where you allow yourself to be a human being. Where you're not forcing yourself into be one of those guys that don't talk about emotions. You know, feelings and emotions are something we have, not something we talk about. Most men don't have anyone to talk to. If there's anything coming up, that's not good. That's not good. Look into that identification, where you believe that you can't talk about your emotions and your feelings. And you're working with your emotional awareness is important to kind of like shake that shell of you, where you have to be in a certain way just because you're born with a certain set of genes. And when we then talk about emotional awareness, then also be aware that you cannot make anything happen. You can only let it happen. And it's very much about ego death. Looking into how much you want things to be in a certain way. And really, really discover that that is the ego. That is the ego. In our culture, it's viewed as you know, being strong when you are beyond all the small petty stuff. When you're beyond all the problems in life. And it doesn't really, you know, faze you in any way. that's looked at like something powerful and something, then you're really good. But very often that's bypassing. It's about the idea that problems is an issue. We all have problems. Life is super, super complicated, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having any kind of problems. It's the identification with the problems that is the issue. In itself, there are no problems. There are different ways that reality happened in a way that we did not want it to happen. We wanted something else to happen, but that doesn't have anything to do with reality, does it? That only has to do with the ego that wants something else to be reality. And a lot of times we are not allowing for things to be utter crap, We're trying to fix it, to make everything be okay, be fine, instead of just allowing it to be as it is. If you don't add any opinion about things being as they are, then what's the problem? That's not a problem. So the issue or the problem that is happening is not a problem unless you make it into a problem. It just is as it is. And that's where the emotional maturity comes, or the emotional awareness comes. And also look, a lot of times we have that, I just can't take anymore. I can't deal with anymore. Well, clearly you can, because you are. You are. If you're not adding anything to it, then it just is as it is. Sometimes life is as bad as it looks. And sometimes it can get even worse. And sometimes there's no solutions. This might well be one of those times. There's not a solution. So stop fighting. Stop thinking that you can do anything about the moment and make it any different. A lot of times all the issue that we have is the fighting against what is happening. And that is what is creating all the suffering. Because we want something to be different than what is. And the emotional awareness is about really noticing what is in the moment and what do I want to be different than what is in the moment. And you can't fight that fight. It's only in the mind that happens. You cannot change what is. And the moment right now, nothing needs to be different. If you have cancer, nothing needs to be different. It is what it is right now. It's only your mind that is going into the thought that you should be without cancer, you should not have the cold, or you should not be, whatever. And having that emotional awareness, you're just aware of what is right now. And feeling an expansion in that. Feeling the freedom that there is in that. That you're not supposed to fix anything, because you can't. You can't. It is as it is right now. And whatever moment you look at right now, the moment you look at it, it's already past. You can't even do anything about it. It's already gone. It's already gone. So really the only thing you can do is becoming aware of those ego expectations that you have. Those ego perceptions that you have about things should be different than what they actually are. Become aware of that. And just be with what is. And obviously this also comes with a warning. If you identify as a person who never gets angry and who always helps other people, look into that. Look into that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't help. I'm not saying that you should be angry. I'm just saying that whatever you identify with, look into that. Whatever you identify as, look into that. Yeah. And the next one that I want you to have awareness about is one of those things that is almost, taboo to talk about it. It's about spiritual awareness. And I know that when we talk about non-duality and we talk about what is, it's almost illegal to talk about spirituality. And I do understand it, because in many ways spirituality is tied into being self-help, and is tied into a soul being somewhere, and it's not what I'm talking about at all. But with your spiritual awareness, it's that the moment you realize that you are not at all where you perceive yourself to be, that there is no I anywhere, and there's nothing you can ever know. There's nothing you can ever rely on. Whatever you see, you cannot rely on that. Whatever you hear or taste or smell or touch, you feel, you can never rely on it, because it's a sensory experience that is always attached to a thought. And that thought comes from your bubble of reality. And the bubble of reality is based on previous experiences. So you don't know anything. You can't experience anything without that identification happening right away. Which means that you cannot ever know anything with certainty. And when that belief falls away, where you no longer believe that there is anyone anywhere who can know anything, when that falls away, a lot of the suffering is just gone. It's just gone. And that is when you start to feel an expansion beyond anything that is expanding. And that's what I talk about with the spiritual awareness. So again, you cannot make anything happen. You can only let it happen. You can sit and be curious and open up to an awareness that is beyond anything where there's an I identified with it. Look into all the different perceptions and opinions and that you have. Look into all of it. Question everything. Question what you perceive as reality. Be curious about everything. Because there is no I, and every time we latch onto a perceived reality, then step back and really, really look at it. Really, really look at it. Really, really be curious to what you perceive as a reality. And go into that space where there is stillness, simplicity, and contentment. Where nothing is missing and nothing needs to be any different. And you're just in that movement of that being, where there is no I anywhere. And there's just that sensory experience of being in the moment. And be curious to anything that identifies as anything beyond the non-identifying. So always choose to look closer. Always choose to, whatever you believe is a reality, look closer. Is it still? Are you still believing that there is something tied into that? Tied into something that can be anything but what is right now? And then feel that expansion out of a non-expansion, a connectedness with nothing that is connected. Yeah, I do hear it. I do hear it. And then also, this also comes with a warning. Be aware if you identify with somebody who has gated, or if you identify with somebody who's now done with the fifth fetter, or with somebody who is watching every single non-duality video on YouTube whenever anything comes up. If you identify with that, but I have been meditating for so many years, I have been doing this and that, be aware of that identification. And again, there's nothing wrong with having gated, and there's nothing wrong with passing the Fetters and working with and watching YouTube videos. Nothing wrong with it. Just be aware of the identification with it. And the last one of the awarenesses that I would like for you to have is about your creative awareness. Again, your creativity is something that is moving through you. It's something that is where the body is moving, the sensory experiences are moving, and you are just moving with it. So you can't make your creativity happen, you can only let it happen. And the first thing I would like to say is look into any identification you have. If you say, but I can't paint, I can't draw, are you sure? Are you telling me that you can't pick up a pencil and put it on a piece of paper and do that? Unless you're paraplegic, then you can. And if you're paraplegic, you might be able to use your mouth or your mind or any of those amazing gadgets that we have. Of course you can draw. Of course you can paint. Of course you can. It's just because you're comparing with something and saying that this is not as good as that. Seriously? Work with your creativity, because you are in shackles when you believe that you're not creative. And I'm not saying that you have to become a painter or a potter or anything like that. Just look into the identification with it. And if you have the thing with remember as a child, you were super creative in many, many, many different ways. Go back to that. It might be the way you were super creative in the way you dressed as a teenager. If you're a guy and you would like to wear nail polish and skirt, off you go. What identification do you have in not being allowed to express your creativity through your clothes or makeup or nail polish or whatever? Look into that identification that is in that. So creative awareness is about exploring your perceptions and your opinions about what you can and what you can't do. It is about looking into that fixed idea you have of how you are allowed to express yourself and how you can express yourself. Question everything. Question everything. Who says you can't do any DIY? Who says you can't paint, do pottery, blow glass? Who says you can't wear, a suit and a skirt or heels if you feel like it? Who says that? Who has decided that on your behalf? And why are you so fixated in your creative expression? And obviously this also comes with a warning. If you are identifying as a person who paints or do pottery or paper clippings or whatever, or not, look into that. Emphasis on doing or not doing is always identification. So the last two ones that I would like to talk about is something which you can't do on your own. The first one is physical health. And I mean doctors and dentists and all of that. And again, when we talk about physical health, you cannot make anything happen. You can only let it happen. And again, I'm talking about being in that space where the body is moving you to a direction. So if your body needs a doctor to look at it, if you need blood work, if you need going to the dentist, then do it. Look into why you overdo it or why you avoid doing it. Taking care of the meat suit is about that Buddhist middle way. It's about where we have control on one side and nihilism on the other side. And this is the part, this physical health, when we talk about taking care of the meat suit, it's one of the things that I hear the most when we talk about non-duality. Because it's kind of like that there's put this emphasis into, it's only a meat suit, there is no I don't need to go to the dentist. That's identification. You have a meat suit, just like you take care of your car if you have one. You take care of the meat suit if you have one. Go get a rectal. Seriously. Go have a smear. Go have a mammography. Flush your teeth. Go to the dentist. Wash your hair. Take a shower. Buy shoes that fit your feet and not your mind. Dress in a way that is comfortable and nice for the body, so the body can move in the way that the body wants to move. But identification with the meat suit is huge. It's absolutely huge, and it goes from one end where it's all the control, where you don't accept saggy boobs that need to be tight, or you don't accept your donut, so it needs to be tummy tucked, and you don't accept wrinkles, and you get proud of when you don't look your age, and all of that control that is in it. And then to the nihilism, where you really don't care. You really, really don't care, and there's so much identifying put into not caring. Look into that. What are you gaining from that? Either one. What are you gaining from either one? What is it that you believe that by doing or not doing, that you can control the moment because you can't? Yeah. So in that, the warning is obviously that if you identify as a person who has firm boobs, no wrinkles, and doesn't look your age, look into that. If you identify as a person who doesn't shower, doesn't go to the dentist, don't care about anything, look into that. Both are identification. Any alterations or non-improvements or improvements or none of it that is happening is part of identification. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Both are the same thing. It's about getting into the middle way where you take care of the meat suit. Yeah. Yeah. And the last one is about financial safety. Oh my goodness. As soon as I start to talk about money, people lose it. But financial safety is finances and money is an area where we identify so much, either with having it or not having it. And again, I know that it sounds weird that when I say that you identify with not having money, that you identify as poor, and there is this idea with in some groups of the population and some groups, there's a pride in being poor, just like there's a pride in other groups in being rich. Look into that, question that. But I don't want to be like one of those snobby rich people, billionaires that fly into space and stuff like that. Look into that. Look into that. Why do you first of all talk about it with a derogatory voice? Why do you take it as something negative and bad? Why have you decided that that is a bad thing? Who says that you need to buy a rocket ship just because you're a billionaire? So look into that identification. I don't want to be one of those cold assholes. Who said that you need to be a cold asshole just because you got money? So look into that if you come from the poverty mindset. And if you come from that chasing money, chasing wealth, and chasing richness, and you look at people from a kind of like a layer cake worldview, where people with a lot of money, they are higher than the people with less money, look into that identification. I think we have enough people in history for you to debunk that idea that rich people are better than poor people. So just look into that identification that way that you have with it. A feeling of financial safety is an emotion. It has nothing to do with the amount of money on the account. I would like to repeat that. You having a feeling of financial safety has nothing to do with money. It has to do with a feeling of financial safety. Look into how you're spending your money. Be curious, because you don't need anything. If you live in the Western world, you don't need anything. You have everything you need. You might, if your water pump breaks, you might need a new water pump. And if a dishwasher breaks, it might be comfortable to get a new dishwasher, but question it before you go and buy one. Question why, but I need a dishwasher. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a dishwasher. I'm just saying, look into that expenditure that you have. Look into the money that you spend every month. Look into what you deem as absolutely necessary to have a new pair of shoes every month. Question it. Why is it that is how it needs to be? And again, I have no idea about your finances, So I'm not saying that what you're doing is wrong in any way. I'm just questioning. I'm not even questioning. I'm asking you to be curious to your finances and to your idea of money. We all have an idea and an attitude towards wealth, just like we do with diet and exercise. So just look into that. Look into that identification that is happening regarding wealth. And the warning, obviously, here is about looking into if you identify as a person that is rich, or you identify as a person who is poor. Look into that. Any pride in either is identification. So that was the 10 care areas. I could say much more about every single one, and I'm sure that I'm going to make videos along the way, where I'm going into more depth. If there's something that I haven't talked enough about, write it in the comment section. If there's something you want me to say more about, write it in the comment section. Overall, the third Fetter is paired with the 9. And the 9th is about flow. It's about that movement that is happening where there's no identification with what is happening. There's no identification with the movement that is happening, which means that you have a movement towards eating and you eat, and you have a movement towards exercise and you exercise. You have a movement towards, I need erectils today, or whatever it is, that you move with whatever is needed, and you have no opinion about what is needed. You just do what is needed. Next time we're going to talk more about the difference between wants and needs, and about the body yes and the body no. But I would like for you to, this week, really look into these 10 care areas and really look into the identification that you have with any of them. Another thing I would like to say is that things and life is easy if you start to experience that things become complicated. Then step back. What identification are you making right now? Because as soon as you make something complicated, you have identified with something that you want to be different than what is. In itself, life is easy. The moment is easy because there's nothing missing. There's nothing that needs to be any different, which makes it very, very easy to be alive. The complication happens when you identify and want things to be different than what the moment actually is. So look into that, and look into what benefit you think you have with controlling things in a certain way, or what benefit you think you have with being nihilistic with anything. Stay in that Buddhist middle way, where there's just movement that is happening. Sensory experiences and movement that is happening. So allow yourself to be led. Find the purpose of why you're doing things, and look into the expectation and the avoidance and the fear of things not happening. And if things get complicated, then just leave it. And be curious to what identification you just made, how you had expectations about things to be any different, how you wanted things to be in a different way, or something should happen for things to be better. Just back off and just look at it and allow yourself to be led. Yeah. Thank you.